He is known to the world as one of the defining figures of mid-'80s synth pop, Mr. Howard Jones. Howard, how's your day going, my friend?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, JJ. I'm doing great.
And so, Howard, I know you grew up in Southampton, England, and you and your brothers had a great relationship together growing up. Tell me about that.
You know, we all sort of played instruments and sang together when we were kids. So, you know, we used to do we used to harmonise Beach Boys tracks and pretend that we were in a band, you know, and play waste basket tops and well, we had one really lousy guitar, but we used to pretend we were in a band.
And Howard, what was your relationship like with Bill Bryant?
Well, you know, it was somebody that I knew and collaborated on some of the songs that I wrote early, and now we don't see each other anymore. But I wish him all the best.
And so how did you get signed to WEA in the UK and Elektra Records in the US? Did it have something to do with a BBC One radio session, or did it have something more to do with the Marquee Club performance that you did in London?
For about 2 years, I did like about 150 gigs a year, and I played pubs and clubs outside of London, and then occasionally we managed to get gigs in London, and I used to take busloads of people from place called High Wycombe into town, because they always wanted you to bring your own crowd with you. So that's what we did, and we had, I think our record was 3 full, coach loads of people who came in with us. And I ended up getting a residency at the Marquee on a Monday night for 4 weeks in a row, and so we ended up getting a lot of record companies and publishers down. None of them who wanted to sign me. And then there was one guy from Stiff Records called Paul Conroy, and he absolutely fell in love with the music and realized that, this had potential. And so he was going to sign me to Stiff Records, which was the band that, the label that Madness were on, and Elvis Costello. And then he was offered a job at WEA, which obviously was a kind of big leap forward for him. And so I was his first signing to, Warner Brothers in the UK, and it just went from there.
And what was that like for you, seeing yourself for the very first time on Top of the Pops?
It was terrifying. I mean, actually doing it at all was if anybody watches that first performance, I mean, it looks like I'm fairly at home there, but I was actually really incredibly nervous, and I was like, it looks like I'm chewing gum, but I didn't have any gum in my mouth. It was just a nervous reaction. So when I watched it back, I found it very difficult to watch, because I suppose every time you watch it, you're reliving the sort of trauma that's going on inside your head. But obviously it was a big moment for me, and everything just took off from there. The single went to number 3 after that.
And what was the inspiration behind the tune What Is Love?
I mean, it was a song that was questioning the idea of a kind of Disney-fied romantic love, and that being the answer to everything. I mean, I suppose really going against all the pop songs that have been written about love in the past and still are being written now. But it's the idea that I can't exist without you, baby. It's questioning that whole idea. What is love anyway? And then the third verse says, and maybe love is letting people be just what they want to be. And so, in other words, like in any relationship to succeed, each person has to be strong in themselves and be both people pushing each other forward, rather than being dependent completely on the other person. So it's really exploring those ideas and throwing those ideas out.
In the summer months of 1984, you recorded the tune Like to Get to Know You Well, which was sort of inspired by the Olympics at that time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it would be a great theme for the Olympics. Sort of this idea of bringing people together and getting to know each other is the best way to create a more peaceful world. And in the first video I did, I had well, I don't know what it is. It's a kind of T-shirt, and it has as many flags as we could find from countries around the world, on the actual T-shirt. And so, yeah, it's very much a very simple song, but it's got a very profound message behind it, I think, which is that we need to get to know each other and understand that we share so many things between us, and the more that we can do that, the more friends we can make around the world, and the more peaceful world we can create.
The first single from your studio album, Dream into Action, Things Can Only Get Better. What's the great story behind that timeless piece of music?
Well, I was touring a lot in America during the time I was writing that second album. You have to imagine that I was panicking a bit because the first album did so well, and then I suddenly had no time to write the second album because I was working pretty much every day, either touring or doing interviews or TVs and stuff. So I actually had a little studio with me on the road, and so every day after sound check, I would set the studio up and be writing, and Things Can Only Get Better was one of those ones that I wrote on the road, and I was thinking about the idea that, and I suppose it was something I was feeling at the time. I mean, if everything, suddenly went really wrong, and there was a big, disaster in my life or other people's lives, but actually we've got the strength inside us to sort of turn it round and build anything back up and just rebound from any disaster. And I really believe that each of us has that power, in their life. So I really, that's what the song is about. And I think that's why it's become an anthem for so many people. And I was talking to a lady at one of the shows I just did a tour during March here in the States, and this lady said to me, I played that song every morning for 2 years to just remind myself that I could change my situation. That I was going through a really terrible, breakup of a relationship, and so she played this song to herself every day, and she kind of got through it, and it was a great story that she, related to me. I was really pleased about that.
And what was it like working with Phil Collins as he would produce your hit single, No One Is to Blame?
Yeah, well, I was great because, I'd recorded No One Is to Blame for the Dream into Action album, and that's the version actually that the fans really love best. But I thought that, there was another version of it that we could do that would be maybe more suit the radio. And so I worked with Phil on the Prince's Trust concert that we did in the UK. So I got to know him through that. So I sent him the song and said, would you be interested in producing this song for me again? And he said yes, and he fitted it in on a weekend when they were making one of their Genesis records. And so over 2 weekends, we put the track together, and it just was magic, really, right from the beginning. And it's probably my biggest. Things Can Only Get Better and probably my biggest songs here in the States.
In July of 1985, you were part of Live Aid at Wembley Stadium. What was that like, going out on stage in front of literally millions of people and the world?
It was another very terrifying moment, really, because I did one song, it's a song called Hide and Seek, and I decided I was going to do it solo because my band was on the west coast of the US. So I flew back to London to do it. So I was doing it on my own, and most people were going out there, with a full band and stuff. So I was nervous. My heart was pounding as I sat down at the piano, and I started a little bit quickly, I think, because I was nervous. Anyway, I got to the chorus, and suddenly it seemed like the whole audience joined in with me on the chorus, and from that moment I sort of relaxed and started to enjoy this wonderful moment, that would never come again, sort of thing. And it was amazing. And so it's one of those things that's been, really embedded in my memory. I will always remember that moment because of the fear beforehand, and then the elation of the fact that it actually went really well, and everyone joined in, and everyone was supporting me. It was really cool, and I got to meet some real heroes of mine in that day as well.
A big American hit was Everlasting Love here in 1989, spending 2 weeks at #1 on the AC charts. What was that like, Howard, to have another #1 hit here in the States?
Well, it was great because, I think, as you know, with artists, you have your period of time when you're successful, and then, everyone moves on, and there's new artist coming through. But for me to have another big hit at the end of the 80s with Everlasting Love was really cool, and I think it's a really, well-made track, and it's really beautifully produced by Chris Hughes and Rod Cullum and Ian Stanley, who I had great time working with, and they really pushed me hard to, make a great track, and they really worked me hard on the singing as well. So I was so pleased. Always when you hear it on the radio blasting through, your car stereo or something, you can usually sort of tell, oh yeah, this works so well on the radio, and I'm really, really pleased with that song.
So, Howard, I know you're busy on tour these days. What else are you working on?
Well, this year I've got a new project out. It's called Engage, and it's a kind of multimedia project with, it was based on a live show. So this live show has, quite a lot of visual elements. We project onto a screen at the front of the stage, and then project onto a screen behind. It's got a short ballet piece in there that we filmed in London. It's got sort of some contemporary dance element at the end, and it's got classical music in there. It's got electronic pop. It's got, it's kind of a mashup of all the things that I love together. And we did a show in London earlier in the year, and then one in LA back in early March. And I'm hoping to do it in New York in November. So it's one of those sort of special event shows, and the album and the film is out now, on iTunes and stuff, and it's on Spotify, so people can check it out.
Howard, that sounds awesome. Can't wait to see you live. Tuesday, April 28th, Howard's going to be performing live at the Sabin Theater in Beverly Hills. Also, May 9th at the Canyon Club in Agora Hills. For more information on Howard Jones, go to howardjones.com. Mr. Howard Jones, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks so much, JJ. All the best to you.